reach the god's heart, you must crawl through its mouth, past the rot, and let it know your name. For weeks, for months, the whispers had been her constant companion, a ceaseless, hissing choir that followed her every step, seeping through the cracks in the stone and the fractures in her sanity. But now, the walls stopped whispering. It wasn't because they had fallen quiet. No, it was because something else, something far larger and hungrier, had started listening. You followed the song. Now, feel it. Welcome to Bloody Chapter, where voices melt in silent screams. Like and subscribe. Here's the final verse. Ready to dive in, the belly of the mouth. The final chapter. Elva's breath no longer came in desperate gasps. It had found a new cadence, a rhythm that was not her own. Her lungs didn't just breathe, they sang. Each inhale was a soft prelude, each exhale a sustained, resonant note that echoed in the strange, fleshy architecture around her. She walked through corridors that were no longer carved from cold stone, but had grown into their form. The walls were made of folded layers of glistening vocal tissue, damp and warm to the touch, pulsing with a faint, silent rhythm. The very air tasted of old songs and forgotten words. The deeper she moved into the heart of this living cathedral, the quieter it became. The incessant, maddening hum of the choir, the disembodied voices that had haunted the outer halls, had faded behind her. It was as if she had passed through a sonic veil, leaving the cacophony for a place of profound, humming stillness. Now, her own footsteps were the only distinct sound, tapping against a floor that felt disturbingly like cartilage. But even they began to change, their sharp taps softening, harmonizing with the low thrum of the structure. She was no longer just walking, she was becoming part of the composition. The choir faded away. Only the god remained. She reached the final stair. It wasn't a grand, imposing staircase, but a delicate, terrifying spiral that descended into a cavern of crimson light. The steps were made of polished bone, worn smooth by centuries of suffering, by the countless pilgrims who had walked this path before her. With each footfall, the bone vibrated, sending a pure, perfect tone up through the soles of her feet, a note she couldn't name, but felt deep in her marrow. The air grew heavier, wetter, saturated with an unspoken, unreleased music. It clung to her skin like a shroud, thick with anticipation and ancient agony. And then, she finally saw it. The belly. A vast, cathedral-sized chamber of pulsating red. Immense reed-like arches stretched overhead, forming a cage of living bone that expanded and contracted in a slow, steady rhythm. The entire chamber was a lung, a heart, a stomach, and at its very center, suspended in the thick, crimson air, was a man. He floated motionless, impaled, held aloft by dozens of shimmering threads of golden sound that pierced his body. His eyes were wide open, staring into a distance only he could see. His lips were sewn shut with what looked like black sinew, a permanent seal on any sound he might make. But his chest rose and fell, not with breath, but with a silent, powerful song that no one else could hear. This was him, the First Cantor. The hymn's source, the god's captive. Elva took a hesitant step forward. The air around the floating figure bent and warped, humming softly with an unceasing harmony of pure, refined agony. His arms were outstretched as if in a final, eternal plea. His skin was a canvas of intricate, shifting glyphs that shimmered and writhed with a light of their own. The notes of his unending song made visible. As she drew nearer, the glyphs seemed to react to her presence, their patterns changing, their light intensifying. She stepped into the invisible circle of his torment, and then she heard him. It wasn't with her ears. The sound didn't travel through the air. It wasn't a thought, not a psychic whisper. His song entered her through her bones, bypassing all her senses and resonating directly with her soul. It was a melody of imprisonment, of a voice stolen and turned into a cage. I woke the mouth. The voice whispered, pained. It sang back and won't let go. For a single fleeting moment, the cantor's ancient, weary eyes met hers. a flicker of recognition, a spark of shared identity. You have its voice, his song continued inside her head, but you do not have its will. Suddenly, the world twisted. The very fabric of the chamber contorted as the god, the massive entity whose body they were in, began to steer. The belly contracted violently. The rib-like arches snapped closer, groaning under the strain. The humming in the air deepened, dropping into a terrifying basin that rattled the world, shaking the bone stairs in the very foundations of Elva's being. The mouth was awakening fully. It had grown tired of just having a voice. It craved a body. It craved. Help. The Cantor screamed. Not a sound that could be heard, but a silent, deafening vibration that tore through the chamber, a shockwave of pure sonic agony. The force knocked Elva to her knees, the god song echoing deep within her. Clashed violently with the song of the world around her. She felt herself begin to split, not physically, not her flesh and bone, but sonically. Her voice, her very essence, began to fold and fracture, multiplying into a chorus of dissonant, warring echoes. She was being unmade, her identity dissolving into the gods, overwhelming him. But then, amidst the chaos, the pain, the tearing of her soul, she chose. She remembered the whispers, the journey, the promise of silence. Not her song, not her prison. With a surge of will she didn't know she possessed, she forced herself to her feet. She looked up at the groaning, closing cage of ribs, at the screaming, silent contour, at the insatiable hunger of the god. She opened her mouth and sang her own sound, not the Cantor's agony. A bold note, a song of freedom. The sound shattered the golden threads of music that held the First Cantor. With a gasp of real, audible air, he fell from his suspension, crumpling to the floor, finally free. The walls of the belly quivered, the fleshy tissue recoiling from her voice. The bone ribs buckled, cracking under the strain of a melody they could not contain. The god roared, a true guttural sound of fury and disbelief. For the first time in millennia, it was no longer in control. Elva walked forward, her voice rising in power, a crescendo of liberation. The mouth above, the great maw of the cathedral, howled in response, trying to drown her out, to reclaim its sonic dominance. In the distant halls, the choir screamed in reverse, their voices twisting and turning back on themselves. The entire structure of the cathedral began to crack, stones and bones splintering. Elva kept going, singing of new beginnings. She sang of silence that meant peace, not punishment. She sang of a will that could not be caged. Her voice was no longer just a sound, it was a force of unmaking, a declaration that this story, this hymn, was over. And with that last note, she vanished. The mouth collapsed inward upon itself, a black hole of sound. The ghostly choir in the outer halls turned to dust, their whispers finally extinguished. The great cathedral, the body of the god, crumbled to its very bones, sinking back into the moor from which it had grown. And far across the wind-swept land, where the wind once carried the god's haunting, inescapable song, there was only silence. The mouth's quiet now, but not forgotten. Like and subscribe to Bloodied Chapter. The hymn will rise again, in another time, in another voice. Until next season, stay low. Stay low.